What's going on, everybody? It's TJ coming back with another 3-round mock draft, including trades. Today, we're also back on mockdraftdatabase.com for this 3-rounder. This is my preferred draft simulator. You're going to be able to see all the previous picks, and I'm really excited to go ahead and get started in today's video. Of course, if you enjoyed today's mock, hit that like button. New around here, want more draft content as we're just under 3 weeks away from the NFL draft. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And I also have decided what I'm going to be doing for draft night coverage. Last year we're live, and we had a lot of fun with people who joined us, but we're also going head-to-head with a lot of other bigger content creators and organizations in general. So I'm actually just going to post YouTube Shorts. I find that to be the quickest, most succinct way to get my thoughts out there without forcing people to watch an entire live stream on top of watching someone else's live stream or just watching it live. So I'm going to be going pick by pick and grading via YouTube Shorts each pick of the first round. So if you want to see all that, be sure to subscribe. And of course, most importantly, leave your thoughts on this mock draft down below in the comments section. Who went too high? Who went too low? Who's your favorite team? And did you like the picks that I gave your squad? All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into things, starting with Caleb Williams going number 1 overall with the Chicago Bears. This is going to happen. At number 2, I'm going to go Jaden Daniels here for Washington. I've been kind of going back and forth between him and May. Personally, I'd go May. Kind of think that Washington, I don't know, maybe I'm buying into this Brian Kelly. He's going to make big plays for Washington. Maybe he knows something I don't. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But let's have Jaden go too, because I also think it opens up the possibility for a lot of really interesting stuff to happen at picks 3 and 4. Which, speaking of that, at pick 3, I'm going to go with J.J. McCarthy. And kind of part of my thinking of this is teams 1 or 2, 3, and then let's, spoiler alert, Minnesota's going to trade up tier to 4. So between New England, Minnesota, and the Washington Commanders, I think New England's got the best bridge situation. Like, if you're not going to start J.J. McCarthy week 1, who do you feel most comfortable, having to start? Sam Darnold, Marcus Mariota, or Jacoby Brissett? For me, easily Jacoby Brissett. So actually, this is kind of the environment where he could actually sit for a year, and there's not going to be as big of a rush to get him on the field. And I think JJ is going to need a full year worth of sitting. So I kind of like the idea of him going 3. And I also wanted to explore the possibility of there's no slam dunk saying that JJ's QB4 off the board. And if the league's criticisms of Drake May are true, I think there's a shot where McCarthy goes ahead of him. So kind of on that point, then we get to pick number 4. I'm going to have the Arizona Cardinals trade back from 4 with the Minnesota Vikings. It's just going to be 11 and 23. This is actually, even here you can see on mockdraftdatabase.com, they use the Draft Tech trade chart, I'm pretty sure. So their trades are pretty spot on. I do have free-for-all trading on those, so this is going to go through. It's actually more points than the 4th overall pick is worth, so I feel like you're paying the QB tax as is. Drake May's going to be the pick at number 4. I think this is Minnesota, like, other than Caleb Williams, this is the next highest guy they have on their board. I don't, it's just a gut feeling. I think he's a great fit in that Kevin O'Connell offense. Would love all the weapons he has, and I love the tackle tandem that he's got. And to me, the reason I think May is closer to QB1 than he is QB3 in this class is just like Justin Herbert. Look at who he was throwing the ball to his last year. Like, literally, look at Justin Herbert 2019. Like, look at the depth chart at Oregon. One great. And also, I think people had just got a little too carried away with, like, little nitpicks, stuff that can be cleaned in a summer. And just like Justin Herbert cleaned it up in a summer, was a really damn good rookie. Him and JJ, kind of the last 2 for rookie of the year. I think the same could be true for Drake May. So for all we know, he may have already cleaned that up. Also, like Josh McCown, their quarterback coach, that was his coach in college, in high school. So I also think those ties pull heavily into this. So Drake May is going to be the 4th overall pick. Now, this is a tough spot if you're the Chargers, right? You'd love to trade back, get some more, ammunition, more draft assets, but also your wide receiver room is deplete of talent. And, maybe Harbaugh's working his angle of, like, let's get J.J. McCarthy in the top 4 so that way Marvin Harrison Jr. falls into my lap at 5. The only reason OSU was even in the game against Michigan this year was because of Maserati Marv. So this solves that big wide receiver issue right now for the Chargers. All of a sudden, Palmer's not a bad 2. Johnson is a creative. Yards after catch 3. Don't hate that. We'll go tight end later on. All of a sudden, the situation looks a lot better in LA. But if it's not Marv there at 5, I think this team's going to try to trade back. Speaking of trades, I'm going to have history repeat itself, and this time it's going to be the Giants trading back, but it's going to be with the Arizona Cardinals and basically have Arizona do the same thing they did last year, wheel and deal. So it's going to be 11 and then pick 66 going to the Giants. And again, it's about right here. If you want to throw in this 4th rounder, pick 104, I'm totally fine with that just to make the system a little happier. We'll go for that. The Cardinals have an abundance of picks inside the top 104, and I think it's 6 in the top 90, 7 in the top 104. That's crazy. They have the luxury to give up some of those draft assets to go and get a guy like Malik Neighbors, who I think is a great compliment for Michael Wilson. And then I don't hate the idea of this team doubling down at receiver, because that number 3 spot, you're like, it's not great. It's fine right now, but I think they could do even better than some of that, like a Greg Dortch. Like, perfect world, like Dortch is kind of my 4. Don't hate him as a 3, I prefer him as a 4 though. So don't hate the idea of this team doubling up at wide receiver. I think Neighbors plus Wilson, that's a fantastic tandem. Let me get to the Tennessee Titans. Won't spend long on this pick. Joe Alt, I mean, if it's there, go for it. And I'm not going to do it. I'm ultimately going to kind of go against what I was originally planning, but I was going to actually double down on tackle in this mock draft. But I'm kind of making a last-second audible. I kind of don't hate the idea of them going tackle at 7 and 38. They double down on tackle and just let Bill Callahan do his thing. That offensive line could go from major weakness to pretty big strength for this roster. So I don't know. I kind of like the idea at the same time. Then we get to the Atlanta Falcons. We're going to do something fun here. We're going to have back-to-back edge rushers go off the board. In a lot of ways, so much of what Atlanta's done this offseason says Leatu Latu here. And there's going to be future mocks. I think my next mock, I'm going to have Leatu Latu go here. He may have been the pick of my last mock. Actually, I think it was Quinyon Mitchell. There's so many possibilities I want to explore that I'm losing track here. But I think there's a world where Leatu Latu makes sense. So much of what Atlanta has done this offseason is win now. We want to win this division at least for the next 2 years, maybe the next 3. And Latu's kind of that guy. But you could also sell me on the fact that by the end of their rookie contracts, Turner is above Leatu Latu as a really solid pass rusher, and Dallas Turner maybe hits that star level kind of production. So I do think he's a good fit for Raheem Morris, and I do think this team is just kind of looking for that explosive, game-wrecking talent. And I don't know if Turner's going to be that year 1. I think he's going to be a pretty productive speed rusher. He's still working I think he's added that inside counter. He's added some muscle, but I still think that's a work in progress. One more year, and I think he could be there. So thought about Leatu Latu. Instead, let's go Dallas Turner. And speaking of Latu, he's going to be the pick here at 9. And this basically came down to, look, Chicago doesn't pick again until 75. Do you want to take Latu here and then hope Marshawn Nealon's there at 75? Spoiler alert, he's not going to be in this mock. So would you rather see what the receiver position's looking like at 75 or the edge spot at 75? It's a way deeper receiver class. As much as I'd love to give this team Roma Dunze, could see them wanting to go get a win-now piece like Leatu Latu, partner him up with Montez Sweat, and then we'll circle back to receiver at 75, So, when your top 2 guys are Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, you have the luxury of drafting a guy in the 3rd, especially in a great receiver class with a ton of depth. So don't hate it. We're going to go receiver with our next pick. Then we get to the Jets, and this is like a sprint the card in situation. If Roma Dunze is there at 10, you don't think twice about this. This is Mike Williams long-term, Mike Williams on a 1-year deal. So this is Mike Williams of the future with way less injury concerns. I think he's a fantastic fit with Aaron Rodgers and so much, there's been a handful of comps out there, and I know some people don't see the route running potential that I see. I think he's a guy that can run every route on the field. I think it was just TikTok, so someone's probably doing this for clips. But there is something about his release and his ability to catch those back shoulders that is kind of, dare I say, Devontae Adams-esque. Again, that's dangerous to say. I think Devontae Adams is the single greatest release I've ever witnessed during my lifetime. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But if he could be 75% of Devontae Adams for Aaron Rodgers, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty fantastic. And it's a huge upgrade at the least over Allen Lazard. And I also like it because you could play Odunze in the slot. You could also play Garrett Wilson in the slot. Just gives you a ton of flexibility on picking on matchups. Like, who's the weakest corner? How do we want to exploit them with what guy? You can kind of move these guys around and just be a true mismatch nightmare. But also, if Rodgers plays more than 1 year, like Odunze and Wilson, if you don't break back Mike Williams, is a really solid duo for the future. All right, then we get to the Giants here at 11. I'm going to go Brian Thomas Jr. Look, I think there's a world where if McCarthy doesn't go top 10, let's say he falls to 11, Minnesota doesn't move up, they get their guy at 11, or, quote unquote, one of their guys. I could see a world where quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, receivers 4, 5, 6, and then the Bears maybe at 9. If Latu's the pick at 8, I can see a world where the Bears are willing to pull the trigger on him at 9. So I don't think it's crazy for the Giants to do it at 11. They could use more vertical playmakers in this offense. They could use a guy with size. And I also think there's yards after the catch ability. I think he's got enough wiggle and athleticism to do more intermediate route running stuff, more in-breaking routes than LSU asked him to do. So I think he gives you kind of a mesh of, you love to see Marvin Harrison Jr. there, right? But a kind of a mesh of Neighbors' big playability, but the practical size that Odunze brings to the table that they've been missing forever, and they kind of wanted Kenny Golladay to do. So could Thomas be the meshing of that world? I think they could, and then you ultimately get another pick out of it. And meanwhile, for Arizona, you move back up to 6. You turn, 4 into 11 and 23, and then 11 and 70 into Malik Neighbors. So you lose 70 basically after all that's done, and you get pick 23. That's worthwhile to me, and you still get Neighbors. And then for the Giants, you get a quarterback. That's what we're going to take at 66, and you still get a great receiver at 11. So I think the trade kind of worked out in a lot of ways for both sides. So it's just going to come down to the Giants. Do they want McCarthy or no? That's all going to be the decision. All right, let's get to the Broncos here at 12. Bo Nix is the guy that I'm going to have them take. I just think he's kind of the amalgamation of talent that Sean Payton wants, processing, underneath accuracy, with enough mobility to get kind of crafty in the run game. And I also think with the receivers there, that kind of caters to that as well. I still have Sutton, you still got Patrick, and then Marvin Mims, hopefully, going to be their big play threat this year. So, like the fit. I think it's totally a Sean Payton type. Let's get to the Raiders. Teliese Fuanga, going to continue to make this the pick, and then the second rounder is going to be the same too. So, sorry, Raiders fans. This probably gets a little boring, but at the same time, feels like you guys are pretty much on board. Like, perfect fit at right tackle. One, because it's a position of need, but also I feel like he matches Luke Getsy's blocking scheme. He matches like the toughness and physicality you think of with the Raiders. And then the quarterback, we're going to have them take at 44. They probably need to trade in the first round to get, if we're honest, and I'll make sure I do that in the next round or in the next mock draft I do next weekend. But for this one, the guy's going to fall in their lap at 44. And, everything I see, Raiders fans are pretty excited about that tackle, that quarterback combo at, the first two rounds. So they could take Penix here at 13, but I think if you can try to wait, get him in the late first, move him for 44, that would be kind of more ideal. Let's get to the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to go Troy Fautanu. I don't want to give away too much of my position rankings, but Fautanu is definitely up there for the tackles. And I think no matter what happens with Ryan Ramczyk, Fautanu could flip over. Trevor Penning might ultimately be a better fit at right tackle. To me, the pass protection is just not there. Let's move him inside to guard. So if you're going to have Ramczyk play for a year, him and Fautanu, that's great. Penning probably going to have a career year if you move him inside. And then maybe we can readdress tackle next year. Also, James Hurst, could we kind of, depending on what happens with Ramczyk, again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not there, so I don't know. But you also have James Hurst as a potential Ramczyk replacement, and I almost think a world where Fautanu, Hurst, or, in some combination, one on the left, one on the right, if that's your tackle tandem, Penning on the inside, I'd almost prefer that to whatever combination might have Fautanu and then Penning playing tackle. I think at this point, Penning, the move to the inside goes a long way for him. All right, let's get to the Indianapolis Colts. No Brian Thomas Jr. on the board. That would have been great. But they do have Brock Bowers available, and so many Colts fans have been wanting this, and I'm glad that I can finally make it happen. He is definitely an upgrade over. I like Jelani Woods, call games for VCU, specifically for basketball, so big Bo Alley Cox guy, but Brock Bowers is a different breed, right? Like, this is the greatest tight end I've ever scouted. So it's kind of the same is true for the next guy that's going to come off the board, just at a different position. But this is a big focal point of the offense for the Colts, but also a great middle of the field weapon. Make the game simple for Anthony Richardson as he comes back and still needs more reps. But also, it's just like, you got to tackle Brock Bowers over the middle and Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. I always bring it back to that. I want complicated body types that you're going to have to bring down when you have Anthony Richardson in the equation. I think Brock Bowers is exactly that, specifically for the middle of the field. All right, let's talk about the greatest center that I've scouted. I think that Jax Powers-Johnson's that guy in my books, and maybe a little rich for 16. I'm kind of starting to hear stuff that he may be an all-time center prospect, but doesn't mean he's going to kind of break the NFL's trend. This would be earlier than Frank Ragnow was selected. This would be earlier than Travis Frederick was selected. I get it. And it makes a lot of sense for Seattle to trade back, and the next mock I'm going to do, I'm going to have them trade with Washington. So, because I think that's totally a live possibility. But at the same time, I look at their interior offensive line, I'm like, center or left guard, this guy's an immediate plug-and-play, absolute upgrade. And I liked Oluwatimi last year, but honestly, as much as I liked him, I love me some Jax Powers-Johnson. So if they feel like day one he needs to be their center, I'm totally fine with that. But they need a high-end interior offensive line starter to take that group from abysmal to, like, serviceable to above average, and I think Jax Powers-Johnson could be that missing link, basically. Jaguars then at 17. Let's go Quinyon Mitchell. I'm kind of intrigued by the idea of playing him on the inside year one, just because he's kind of an underrated physical guy, especially sub 200 pounds. He plays really, really a lot more physical than you would think, given that he is sub 200. And you could have Ronald Darby play on the outside, kind of get Quinyon Mitchell's feet wet. You could also see a world where you just play him outside, and Darby's just kind of a luxury. He's not getting that much money, so you don't have to force him on the field. So Quinyon and Tyson Campbell is your best bet on the outside. Roll with it, and let's see what Antonio Johnson is in the nickel. I'm fine with that as well. And then Darby's just some depth, but I like this ton. I think it's a good scheme fit, and man, the athleticism of him and Campbell is a really exciting tandem on the outside for the Jags. All right, doing something a little different here for the Cincinnati Bengals. I had Byron Murphy, my favorite defensive player in this class, fall into their lap here at 18. I think it's possible. Like, I think the NFL is coveting IDL more. You look no further than the Christian Wilkins contract, right? But at the same time, like in the draft, with a lot of receivers, a lot of good quarterbacks, some of these top-end defensive players may get pushed down the board. And Byron Murphy as your DJ Reader replacement, I like that a ton. And Murphy quite literally would play the nose, even with Devondre Sweat on the field. So I think you can line this guy up anywhere from nose all the way out to 5-tech. I really do. I think you can move this guy all the way around. Awesome combination of speed, first-step quickness, power, and strength to go with it. Like, I love it. His last 6 games of the year at Texas just were like, whoa, this guy's a freak. And that's kind of what I'm basing all this off of. And I think the upside's there. And I like Johnny Newton a ton, but I think those two guys are both going to be really, really high-level players. I think Murphy might just have a little bit more upside just because 308 goes a little bit further. But they're also kind of different because of that. And I don't really think you're ever going to play Newton at nose. I think you can with Murphy. All right, let's get to the Rams here at 19. This would have been a great spot for Byron Murphy to fall to, but instead let's go Terrion Arnold. Inside-out flexibility. If you play him on the outside, yeah, I understand they just brought in Trey White, but look, just because you sign a guy and he's got name value doesn't mean he's going to play 17 games. Like, you gotta swallow that pill. And a combination of Trey White, Darius Williams, Terrion Arnold. I don't love how small that corner room is, but I want to explore this because, again, inside-out flexibility. And if they do stick kind of quarters heavy, Arnold could be a demon in that because, like, he's a great man coverage guy. Now you're asking him to just play a little bit further off the line of scrimmage when you are going to play quarters. His movement skills has changed direction. His ball skills too. Redshirt sophomore, only 3 years of college experience. Like, I think this guy's just a natural at the position. May not be the most gifted athlete, but it's a pretty zone heavy defense there in LA, and I think he would be able to fit that mold despite not having like 4.3 speed or something like that, like Nate Wiggins. So or 4.2 speed for like Nate Wiggins. So I like this a ton, but it does kind of leave you a little small. So maybe that's the small piece of reservation I have about this pick. Pittsburgh Steelers then here at 20, and for all the reasons that you could even flip these picks basically. Is what I'm going to say here. Like, DeJean to the Rams, give you a little bit more size. I'm totally fine with that. And almost just use him as Jalen Ramsey inside out, kind of move him all over the field, take advantage of his tackling. Retrospect, now I kind of wish I did that. And then Terrion Arnold, sticky man coverage guy. Really like the idea of him paired with Joey Porter Jr. So actually, I kind of do wish I flipped these. But nonetheless, I could also see a world where DeJean makes it to 20. Pittsburgh's like, hey, boom, there's our slot corner of the future. And that's kind of what I base this pick off of. Like, let's play this guy on the inside. Let's boost up that run defense. Use him as a blitzer. He's super physical, but also an abundance of experience playing on the outside, being a shutdown cover guy. And I think that type of coverage ability in the middle of the field goes a long way for this Pittsburgh defense. So also to have him and Minkah Fitzpatrick kind of lurking over the middle if you're playing a little zone, I would also love the idea of that. So no matter what the play is, I feel like Cooper DeJean brings a lot of value to this Pittsburgh secondary. All right, Miami on the clock here at 21, but we are going to have a trade. Same one as last time out with the Washington Commanders moving back into the first round. Just drafted a quarterback at, number 2 overall. So to me, makes a ton of sense to go ahead and double down on that investment. Go get a high-end pass protector. And I do think Olu Fashanu is exactly that. Question marks about that hand size. That does give me pause for concern. I think he'll get better in the run game, with another 10 pounds worth of muscle. I think he'll get there. And it's also going to be interesting to see, like, Anthony Lynn kind of tells me the Commanders might be a gap scheme, but I don't know, Cliff and, their offensive line coach coming from the Giants, which, again, I don't love that hire. The Giants have had some O-line struggles over the last couple of years. Some wins, but John Michael Schmidt's not great last year. Evan Neal hasn't figured it out. Anyways, different topic for a different day. But those kind of signal a little bit more split zone to zone, so I don't know. It might be a bit of both. Running up the middle, more gap. Outside, maybe you go zone. So I'm kind of questioning how Fashanu fits in gap versus zone. I'm kind of leaning towards zone just because that hand size, he doesn't latch on. I feel better about him just getting to space, getting in the way of a guy versus having to get his hands on him just because his hands are. I have legitimately bigger hands than only Fashanu, which is crazy. But nonetheless, like you need an elite pass protecting left tackle. That's been a major problem spot the last 2 years for Washington. Team that gave up a ton of sacks, partially because of the O-line, partially because of Sam Howell. Different quarterback to fix that. Love the legs that Jaden Daniels. He'll kind of cut down some of those sack numbers. He holds on the ball a good bit too, but more athletic than Howell. And then Olu Fashanu then at left tackle. Huge upgrade pass pro wise over Charles Leno. So love that a ton there for the Commanders. Philadelphia Eagles next up at 22. I'm going to go with J.C. Latham, and I could even see a world, Tyler Steen, former Alabama Crimson Tide offensive lineman himself. Steen could play right guard, depending on what they want to do there, but I could also see where you play Latham at right guard, and then eventually he's your Lane Johnson replacement at right tackle. Man, I don't know. Depending on the day, I could have Latham as high as like OT2-ish, OT3. I don't know. Like the guy at OT2, I love a ton. The more I watch him, the more I love him. So Latham could be as high as OT3, but at the floor, he's probably OT5. I don't know. I go back and forth, but I'm really excited that he's down to the 340 mark where he was 2 years ago. I think he just looks so much better getting off the ball. And you see more athletic, you see his movement skills a little bit more at 340 versus 360, which I think is what he was playing at this last year. So I think you could basically play him right away on the inside, get his feet wet, and then move him over to right tackle, kind of shades of what the Cowboys ended up doing with Tyler Smith. And I think that's a great succession plan there for the Eagles. And ultimately, I think Latham right now is a better football player than Tyler Guyton. I know that's Lane Johnson's guy. If you trade down and you want to get Guyton, cool. But I think right here, if you're sticking and picking at 22, Latham is the best of the bunch available. All right, Arizona here at 23. So again, you basically move on from pick 66 to get to 23. I love that, especially if that means it's going to edge Jared Verse. Like I said earlier, the question is going to be, do you want to edge now here in the first round, or do you want to try to find a diamond in the rough on day 2? And look, the hit rate for edge rushers is significantly higher in the first round. It's not 100%, but it's significantly higher in the first round than it is day 2s and 3. And like, that's going to be the same pretty much across the board, right? But like, receivers are a little bit easier to find, especially if you have a right fit and a right role in an offense for them, right? Like, you can get your guy that makes sense days 2 and days 3. Edge, guys go in the first round because they have intangibles and they have traits. And, once you get past that first round crop, there's something flawed about that prospect that you're hoping to overcome. And not to say there's not second and third round and fourth round, fifth round hits at edge. I'm not saying that, but they are much fewer and far between. So I like the idea of like, hey, if the Cardinals are going to flip out 66-23, go ahead, tack edge. So it's a place where I definitely think they can get better. I think they have like a BJ Ojulari, like can be your bend finesse rusher, and I think Verse kind of plays off of that really well. It's more of a straight line, explosive, kind of using his power more as his trump card as a pass rusher. So he's different than Ojulari. He's kind of different than Cam Thomas in that regard too. Dennis Gardeck too, if you want to throw him in the mix as a long-term piece, I guess. But I think this gives them, I think honestly, day 1 versus their best edge rusher on the field. Like, I really do. So love that. And again, rather make that swing. I'd rather take a swing of the bat at this position at 23 versus 66. All right, Dallas Cowboys then at pick number 24. I'm going to go Graham Barton. And in a lot of ways, they got him here on the interior offensive line. You're just plug and play at left guard. Perfect. Or you could play him at center and then just make it a competition of who's better, Hoffman at center or Bass at left guard. And then whoever is the weakest link, Barton replaces, So whether it's center or left guard, I love this a ton. It's just an upgraded starter at either one of those spots. I get he can play center. I'd play him at guard. But again, I'm not there to evaluate who's better, TJ Bass or Hoffman. So who knows? But no matter what, Barton's flexibility is going to go a long way on that Dallas offensive line. And I think the idea of him at left guard, Tyler Smith at left tackle is super exciting. That's why I'd maybe lean in that direction. All right, Green Bay then at 25. I'm going to go with Jerzon Newton. Had a Packers fan shout out last year for Kenny Clark under contract. So you basically just get Johnny Newton in right now, and you could have him sit. I don't know. He's such an NFL-ready guy that I kind of hate that idea in some respects. But just get good football players in the field. I'm sure you'll be able to make it work with Clark, Wyatt, and Newton. So just get those 3 guys in the field. They're all really good. Or in the event that one of them gets hurt, you have a built-in replacement option. But this is really about year 2. If Kenny Clark doesn't come back, you have Johnny Newton there ready to go. And him plus Devontae Wyatt is crazy. And especially if this Jeff Hafley defense, a lot of other Packers fans have been saying it's going to be 4-man fronts, kind of get upfield, single gap penetrating. Newton and Wyatt would be a nasty combination. If that's truly going to be their scheme, that's one hell of a, you go NASCAR package with those 2 guys in the middle, that's going to be ferocious. So I like that a ton there for Green Bay. If again, that is how it ends up playing out, and that is what the scheme they're kind of chasing. I had a different mock draft kind of planned originally, and Jared Verse was going to fall here to Tampa Bay. And I wish I could have made it happen. Sorry, Tampa fans. I'm going to try to make it happen eventually. It'd be a great fit. But here instead at 26, I'm going to give you Chop Robinson, the next best edge on the board. Do you think Chop's going to go round 1? Yeah, it kind of feels like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Yeah, he's a freak athlete. We'll coach him up. But just because it didn't work with one guy doesn't mean it's not going to work with the other. And who knows? Like, if Chop might be the missing piece, right? Because he's so athletic and he might draw enough attention to where Tryon-Shoyinka in year 4 start seeing more one-on-ones and kind of has a breakout season. So they just got to address this position. They lose Shaq Barrett. They got to get better. I take a shot in the dark on Chop here at 26. At the worst, you're getting a high-end athlete who can, be a speed rusher for you. And I think he plays the run relatively well. So can be a 3-down guy. And upside of this is he learns how to be a pass rusher under Todd Bowles, and then this guy becomes an alien. And then you're looking at this pick at 26 as one of the steals of the draft. So I think it's worth a shot. Pick 27, back to the Arizona Cardinals. Let's go Nate Wiggins. I see a lot of Nate Wiggins, Garrett Williams comparisons, freaky athletes. Just, Wiggins didn't get hurt against Notre Dame like Garrett Williams did. I also think you can play Garrett Williams on the outside. I get it. Like, you can play Sean Murphy Bunting in the slot. I just think you find out which one of those two is better on the inside, and that's where you play one. I don't know. Sean Murphy Bunting's been okay in both spots. I kind of want to see what Garrett Williams looks like on the outside. Also, I'm a Keytrell Clark guy. He actually went to my high school, so a little bit of bias there. But I think he has the makings of being a good slot. You can play Buda Baker on the inside. This is a great slot class, so you could go draft Jarvis Brownlee Jr. in the 4th round. We just got rid of pick 104. But you could go draft a slot, in the 3rd, 4th round, and then boom, there you go, taken care of. And you're going to play Wiggins and Williams on the outside. That would be my preference. I think this is a good draft class to do that. Double down at corner, kind of like I'm saying earlier, double down at receiver. There's spots where they're super thin, and this is a great class to go and get some depth. Specifically, if you get a corner early here, draft a slot round 3. I really like the idea of that for Arizona. Then we get to the Buffalo Bills here at 28. Adonai Mitchell falls right in their lap. Obviously, post-Stephon Diggs trade. Yeah, we're going to be focusing pretty heavily on wide receiver here for the Bills. They might have to move up and go get Adonai Mitchell, but the way the board played out, I don't think it's unrealistic that he made it here to 28, and he gives them just a big body receiver they don't have right now. Go pluck it out of the air. Just go give Josh Allen a bailout guy. I think Adonai Mitchell both has the athleticism and the ball skills to be that dude. Detroit Lions are next up. Let's go with Kool-Aid McKinstry. 4.47, even with a fracture in his foot. That puts those speed concerns to bed. 3-year starter. I'm really optimistic about him being a first round. I'm glad that, honestly, if he ran anywhere from 4.5 to 4.54, I'd have been fine with him. But it's once you get to like 4.56 to 4.6, kind of this maybe Kamari Lassiter range, depending on what 40 time you believe in, that's when it becomes a little bit of a concern. But also his length, if he ran 4.55, his arm length and his long strides kind of make up for where maybe he's not the most fast dude on the field. So specifically the arm length there. So I'm not too concerned about it, but love it at 4.47. I think he's a great scheme fit. Another guy with some size. Him plus Carlton Davis. Love the idea of those two dudes being the outside corners for Detroit. Baltimore, then at pick 30, let's go Marius Mims. They might need him to play right away if they do this, but I think the idea of moving Patrick McCarry inside is preferred. Andrew Voorhees, I feel comfortable starting. Mims has a ton of talent. Like, I think he's a little bit more pro-ready than Broderick Jones. There's still work. Like, you still need to get a little bit better hitting the strike zone, right? He's got to get more consistent there. But I think that's just because he's played 8 college games over the last 2 years. But again, I say this all the time. Look at the Ohio State game, the college football playoff, not this past year, but the year before. Like the CJ Stroud game. That's gonna have him in the first round of that game alone. 6'7", 340, moving the way he does. That's a rare breed right there. So really, it's just come down to, can this guy stay healthy? And if he does, I mean, this is another one of those picks where it's like, how did this guy fall to 30? But a little less athletic, I think, than Broderick Jones movement skills wise, but a little bit more consistent hitting the strike zone. I think Broderick Jones was a pretty big work in progress there. Mims not as much, but still, there's going to be some work. There's going to be some translating that needs to be done, but that's all these guys are going to need that, every single one of them. So I like the risk of 30. Marius Mims going 30 to Baltimore. San Francisco then at 31, stay with the offensive tackle group. Let's go Tyler Guyton. Colton McKivitz on a 1-year, $7 million deal. No need to start him. $7 million is a fine swing tackle price. Maybe you can move McKivitz inside too if like you got afforded that luxury or that flexibility. That'd be pretty awesome. Or you could look at Guyton and say, 1 year starting experience at Oklahoma. Let's start McKivitz this year, and then year 2, Guyton takes over. No matter what happens, I like the prospects of him fitting this offense. Love the movement skills. Love the run blocking ability. And if they do, especially if they draft and stash him, let him sit for a year, and then we get to see Williams plus Guyton, that could be a nasty tackle tandem, especially given he gets to work with Trent Williams every day. Like that, this could be one of the top outcome possibilities for Tyler Guyton if he makes his way to San Francisco. All right, then Kansas City Chiefs to round out round 1. Ladd McConkey, easy one here. We'll see what happens with Rashee Rice, but this team just needs more guys who can just flat out get open, guys who can just naturally separate. That's Ladd McConkey's game, but also he runs a sub 4.4, so it's not just he's a shifty white guy. He has got long speed. He's got big playability. He can kind of be a Tyler Lockett type of threat in this offense. It's a 1-year deal for Hollywood Brown, so now you got 4 years of at least one guy who, can consistently beat man coverage with his route running, but also has big play and deep speed. So love this a ton. Think it's a great fit. And then Mitchell also makes a ton of sense here to give him a little bit more size, but Mitchell's gone. McConkey's here. I think it's the next best option for KC. Round number 2, let's give the Carolina Panthers Keon Coleman. Again, I think the Bengals at this point are going to keep T. Higgins. They're not going to trade him. Maybe draft night, I'm surprised, but I think they're going to keep their chips in the center of the table and try to go win a ring, and then they'll just deal with whatever happens next offseason. And in that case, I'd love to see T. Higgins playing that Mike Evans role for Dave Canales in Carolina. But if it can't be him, I think Keon Coleman makes a lot of sense. Stay young. They have no pressure to win right away, but I would like to see what Bryce Young is here in year 2. But nonetheless, Keon Coleman, I like the gauntlet drill numbers more than I like the 40 for sure, but I trust that a little bit more if I'm honest. So I like Keon Coleman to be that big body receiver they don't have right now. Pick number 34, I'm going to have New England take Xavier Worthy. Worthy easily could go round 1. He's kind of a tough one, right? Like, just comes down to, are you counting speed twice? But I don't know. I like the volume. I like how Texas has used him. They've used him in a variety of roles. He's been a yards of the catch guy. He's been a designated deep threat this year. A little bit more of a volume role. Like, they've asked him to do a little bit of everything year over year. So I like that. And also, like, New England, technically they have speed in that receiver room with Tyquan Thornton, but like Tyquan Thornton, akin to John Ross, like, they're just fast. They don't functionally play receiver. So Xavier Worthy feels like getting a Tyquan Thornton who actually can, play the position a little bit. So I like it a ton from that standpoint. I think it frees up the middle of the field for Kendrick Bourne and Pop Douglas a lot as well. Pick number 35. Yeah, I am going to ultimately make a flip here. This was going to be Demarcus Robinson, and I know we already went tackle. I mean, we already went edge, but I don't hate the idea of them doubling down, especially a flexible guy like D-Rob. He could be inside, outside. I'm going to go Kingsley Suamataia. The more I look at Jonah Williams' contract, yeah, it looks like he's probably there for 2 years. You can save a little bit of money next year by cutting him, but you probably just keep him around. You'd save like $3 million. But look, Jonah Williams is not good. Like, it's just that simple. Like, look at the last 2 years of PFF grades and just like watch the games. Like, he's just not good. And his body type is more guard. So you get the draft Suamataia here at 35. He's played right tackle 2 years ago. He played left tackle last year. Flexibility, just like you have in Paris Johnson Jr. Figure out who's better at what spot. That's the ideal way of moving forward. Or you could look at Suamataia and say, hey, he's a little raw. We don't need him to start year 1. I'm fine with that too. And if you feel like, hey, let's give Jonah Williams a shot, you could let Jonah Williams start for 8 games. And then when you see it's a disaster, you put Suamataia on the field. And then you get to see what that's looking like after 8 weeks worth of buildup. So I think there's a lot of options here. You don't have to rush Suamataia on the field, but ultimately I do think this is a better long-term piece than Jonah Williams. Miami Dolphins are next up at 36. Jordan Morgan, didn't have to think twice about this one. Winning, if more so when Teron Armstead misses a game, Jordan Morgan can slide over, play some left tackle. The arm length's going to keep him inside, and I just love the idea. He is an absolutely better guard than Liam Eichenberg, said by a Notre Dame fan. That hurts me to say, but Eichenberg just has not worked out at the next level. I think Jordan Morgan is absolutely an upgrade there with some flexibility to be a spot starter at tackle. Then here at 37, I'm actually going to have the Los Angeles Chargers trade out of this spot, and they're going to trade places with the Green Bay Packers. One, to give them a linebacker in this mock. I failed to do that last time out, and I was kicking myself for it. Maybe their second, and their later third. And you can see the point value is not quite spot on, but it's not for a quarterback. And honestly, I think the Chargers are desperate enough to where they're like, yeah, whatever. You'll give us 2 swings of the bat for 1. Let's do it. I don't have the Packers take Peyton Wilson. For my money, the best off-ball linebacker day 1 in this class. They need to replace Devondre Campbell. 4.43 speed. Plays a little tall, but I think you can fix that basically during training camp. Really like Wilson being a day 1 starter in Green Bay. Tennessee Titans, again, I had Suamataia go originally. This is where I was going to have him go. I was going to have him be the right tackle replacement over Nicholas Petit-Friere. Joe All plays left tackle, Skoronski at left guard, and basically with 2 picks, if it works out and Bill Callahan works his magic, this goes from a disastrous O-line to like, oh, damn it, that actually doesn't look too bad. I actually kind of like it for Will Levis. And considering they paid for a receiver during free agency, I don't think it's crazy. Titans fans, let me know. Would you be okay with doubling down on tackle? And would you like Alt plus Suamataia moving to right tackle? Like, would you be down for that tandem? And what do you think that means for Will Levis? I'd love to know what you think down below. But like I said, I made an audible midway through. Darius Robinson's going to continue to be the pick here. I think he's just your perfect Nico Autry replacement. Outside, inside flexibility, an additional edge help to this team. They're still looking for more edge resources, right? Like Bud Dupree wasn't a hit in free agency. Harold Landry last year of his deal. It's good for this team to continue to invest in that position. Carolina here at 39, same pick as last time out. Zach Frazier. I don't want to see what Austin Corbett looks like at center. I know it's the same picks as the last mock, but I think other than maybe Carolina fans have a different receiver in mind, I like Keon Coleman there to play that Mike Evans role, like I said. But I think Zach Frazier here at 39 is going to be like universally, like this is the pick that I think a lot of Carolina Panthers fans want. And honestly, I can see where Panthers fans are saying take him at 33 because I don't want the Chargers the chance to draft him. I don't want to give the Commanders a chance to draft him. I think that makes a lot of sense too. Or Miami in this case, they traded back into 36, so could see that too. So maybe we'll explore that in future mocks. But I think it's a great fit. I don't want to see what Austin Corbett looks like at center. Just have him be depth. Let's get Zach Frazier in there to start day one. Washington Commanders now on the clock at 40. Let's go TJ Tampa. Think at this point this is just an upgrade over Benjamin St-Juste. We'll see what Emmanuel Forbes looks like year two, but this team needs to reinvigorate some talent on the outside. It's a major issue at this point. I think Quan Martin's going to be fine in the slot, but on the outside, they need Forbes to take a step forward year two, and they need an upgrade over St-Juste. I think Tampa gives them that size plus solid athleticism, comfortability playing man and zone, off and press. Just gives Dan Quinn a lot of flexibility there. Green Bay back on the clock here at 41. We'll have Jaden Hicks be the first safety off the board. He's Dane Brugler's top safety. I think it's a possibility that he is the first safety taken. 4.47 speed, a lot of snaps, both playing over the top, but also in the box. And I think him plus Xavier McKinney, fantastic tandem right there. And McKinney last year actually played more snaps in the box than he ever has in his career. So maybe you could go Newman, but if we're going to see some split safeties, I think Hicks plus Xavier McKinney works. But also, if those guys are rotating, they both have experience playing down in the box, while the other one can play over the top, and I'm totally comfortable with that. Ultimately, the reason I decided to go Hicks was 4.47 speed if he's going to play over the top versus 4.61 with Newman. I think Newman's got great feel for that, but like the 4.6 speed kind of makes you think twice about it. Hicks, not so much at 4.47. Houston, this was one of the first picks I had in mind. They got Folo Fadakasi there to be a run stuffer. I think this team has basically built a D-line that's like looking for, he's not going to be great against the run, but if we could get a single gap penetrator, just a true game-wrecking pass rusher on the inside, that's who we're looking to target. And maybe Fisk is who they have in mind. Like, otherwise, I don't get why they moved out of 23. I mean, ultimately, they get Stephon Diggs. It's a huge trade here. We're not going to have them land a receiver in this mock draft, which, I wouldn't hate it, but Diggs, that's a huge haul. And now when you look at that trade from 23 to 42 and then netting Stephon Diggs, it looks like the Texans just fleeced the combination of the Bills and the Vikings. It just, when you look at what they spent to get all that back, it's ridiculous. Masterful work by Nick Caserio. And that's what good GMs do, right? But that being said, like Johnny Newton at 23 would be one hell of a pick. But maybe they're saying, hey, we can get Diggs, and then Fisk's going to be there at 42. From everything we know, Fisk is going to be there. And if he is, I think he's a fantastic fit on that defensive line. I think they have enough pieces there to kind of hide him in the run game, but fully take advantage of his movement skills and his explosiveness and really tap into that on passing downs. And I would love that addition to D'Amico Ryan's defense. Atlanta Falcons are next up at 43. Let's go Kamari Lassiter. Depending on what you think the 40 time is it fast? Is it slow? Is it 4.5? Is it 4.6? If it's 4.6, let's play this guy in the slot where I think this team can use an upgrade. If it's 4.5, let's play him on the outside. Georgia, Atlanta, like that's kind of a fun fit there. He gets to play in the same stadium he played all his college games, right? Right? It's the same field, right? I think it is. Am I going crazy? I might be overthinking it right now. But anyways, inside-out flexibility. Basically, I'd get him in training camp and see, let's just run a handful of 40s. Are you 4.5 or are you 4.6? Atlanta probably has the right number. But I'm building this out to have a case for Falcons fans not to panic. Either he's a day one starter in the slot if he runs 4.6, or if he's a 4.5 guy, he's a nice number 2, opposite of A.J. Terrell. He's a 3-year starter, trusted by Kirby Smith as a true freshman to play. I mean, I think that says the instincts, the natural feel he has for the position. So I feel comfortable with him starting day one, whether it's outside or inside for the Falcons. Raiders, like we talked about earlier, Michael Penix. I think he's a fit. I think he's a scheme fit for. Hopefully Luke Getson changes up that passing scheme. I don't know how much that's him, how much of it's Fields, but I think you put him in an environment where now we got Fuanga, good offensive line, got Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, like decent spot for kind of a pocket passer, point and shoot, paint by numbers, strong arm quarterback to step into. He's got weapons. The offensive line's not terrible. They're going to want to run the ball. Like I think this is a good spot for him to go. The question is going to be, do they have to trade up from 44 to get him, or will he make it to the second round? That's something I love my QB3. I just don't know where he's going to go. I think probably like 23, 24 is probably where they need to move up to. I don't think he makes it to 44. I don't know. I think the arm talent gets him into the first round. Let's go to the Saints here at 45. Speaking of receivers, let's go Jalen Polk. I think him as that underneath, strong-handed, middle of the field weapon on top of Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed's a really fun one. Cedric Wilson can be kind of a gadget guy. Rashid Shaheed kind of a yards after the catch and deep threat. So I kind of like him. Get the ball in his hands, let him be a yak weapon, let him be a big play guy. Olave, intermediate to deep stuff, and then Polk kind of working the underneath in the middle of the field. I think he just kind of rounds out that receiver skill set. Speaking of another receiver, I love this fit. If I could make one thing happen, this might be it. It's Ricky Pearsall, second round of the Colts. He might go higher than this. I kind of like him as a fit for New England, but absolutely an upgrade over Alec Pierce, plus the built-in chemistry he has with Anthony Richardson. I love it a ton. I think he brings more route running prowess than Pierce, with still great deep speed and honestly better ball tracking skills too. So yeah, it's just Alec Pierce plus, and again, built-in chemistry there with Anthony Richardson. Let's get to the Giants here at 47. Let's keep Max Melton in the state of New York. Inside out flex, but I think the Giants have enough slot options, honestly, on roster. So I just play him on the outside. And 4.47 speed, arm length to show he can play on the outside. Like the tape a ton. I think he could be a solid day one starter. He's just kind of got the position down. And hopefully we get a year or two jump from Deontay Banks. So all of a sudden, like in 1 year, we could see this quarterback room go from like pretty rough in New York to like, okay, young and promising, which is hopefully what we're getting into. Jags are next up at 48. Let's go Troy Franklin. Different skill set than guys like Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis. More yak ability too, which I think this team, Kirk could be some of that, but I think adding Franklin just kind of gives you one more threat there, while also giving you the long speed and the big playability you're kind of missing with Calvin Ridley now in Tennessee. So replaces Ridley, but also gives you more yak ability than you got out of Calvin. So I like that fit. Let's get on to the Cincinnati Bengals at 49. I'm going to Kieran Amagaji. I think basically you play him year one at left guard. Absolutely an upgrade over Cordell Volson, and then you kind of cross-train him to get ready to play right tackle long-term. I know that's like, oh, you're going to ask him to flip sides of the offensive line. If that's the case and you're uncomfortable with that, let's move Alex Kappa to left guard. I'm almost positive he's played there at least a little bit in his career. Amagaji plays right guard, and kind of the same thing we said earlier about J.C. Latham. He plays guard for a year, shifts over to play tackle in a year, maybe two, if they bring back Trent Brown for another year. So you could also do it that way. But basically, get his feet wet, get him some experience, and then have him be a long-term tackle starter for you. So I like that a ton. And ultimately, I like him a little bit more in this range. Jordan Reed had a tweet, I think it was yesterday, saying people see him probably a little bit more in the third-round range, but I'm comfortable with him going in and around this 50 area. Eagles are next up at pick number 50, and I'm going to have them take Edgerrin Cooper. Again, I just kind of like the idea of them drafting and stashing him. They got a couple starters for this year, but basically just have them replace Devin White by next year. That would be my ideal outcome here for the Eagles. I like the idea of him and Nakobe Dean. One guy lacking length, one guy with pterodactyl wings for arms. I kind of like the idea of those two playing off one another. And also you snipe him in front of Pittsburgh, who they definitely could have looked at. Edgerrin Cooper as a linebacker upgrade, but instead, let's go Xavier Legette, Arthur Smith, the OC. Legette, kind of an A.J. Brown clone. This team right now has Van Jefferson at wide receiver too, so you're going to have to do something there. Whether it's first round, a trade up, maybe it's Brandon Ayuk. I personally cross my fingers, hope for that. Every other Steelers fan in my comments from the last mock hates that idea, but that's okay. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I can see Legette kind of being that A.J. Brown clone for Arthur Smith. He's also got a different skill set than George Pickens, while also still having field stretching skill sets, can go up and win in the air. There's like enough similarities to where it fits Russell Wilson and kind of the moon ball, play action, chuck it deep, while being a little different, playing with more physicality. Going to use him in the slants and stuff like that a little bit more maybe with Pickens. You can still use Pickens there, but different body type. Bowling ball versus like Pickens, kind of more slender build, but like the dude's a freak in the air. So anyways, I just think they complement each other really well. And again, Smith or A.J. Brown kind of clone, I think that works. Let's get the Rams here at 52. I'm going to go Tyler Nubin. You're kind of doubling down on secondary. I don't know if the Rams would do that, but I think they have enough of a need there to where they could. And also, like, quarters, is that really the best place to take advantage of Tyler Nubin? Maybe not, but I just love his natural playmaking ability. He's better than Yeast, who's their current starter at free safety. So I think they can get better there. And I think if you get a playmaking turnover machine, which I think Nubin has the potential to be, then this defense gets that much scarier because the offense is going to roll. And if you start taking possessions away from the other team, like, that's when the Rams are working at their best. I mean, think about the Super Bowl run, like generating sacks, stopping drives, because Von Miller gets on a heater once they get in the playoffs, and they had some playmakers. They had a John Johnson III, like, kind of guys like that who could generate turnovers and, make those plays. Jalen Ramsey, of course, in the mix there too. And maybe Nubin kind of brings that back, which they've lost a little bit over the last year or two. Let's get to the Eagles in at 53. I'm going to give Roman Wilson to them as their third receiver. I think he's a nice compliment to Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. Field stretcher, upgrade over kind of Quez Watkins in my eyes, and I think he's more reliable than Paris Campbell, and certainly a better separator than Devontae Parker. So I think he steps on the field, and he's like automatically the third best receiver. Can play him with slot, can play him outside, which also gives them some nice flexibility, depending on what they want to do with Devonta Smith. All right, Cleveland Browns then at 54. I'm going to go Patrick Paul, and one, Jedrick Wills hasn't really worked out, so like last year he's on a fifth-year deal or fifth-year option, so like could you move on from him? Yes, you could. I'd draft Patrick Paul here and just make it a day one competition in camp. You have, yes, the money's guaranteed to Wills, but beyond this year, like whatever. You don't need to force him on the field. But I'm also like, or the real reason I want to like explore this is like Patrick Paul, pterodactyl wings for arms, and then DeJuan Jones, assuming he starts at right tackle. Are you kidding me? Like, two monsters when it comes to arm length at opposing tackle. Like, that's got to be at least in recent memory, like the best arm length tackle tandem of, if at least one that comes to my mind. If anybody knows another tandem that had like both guys just monster wingspans and arm length, let me know. But I think that this would have to be one of the best arm length duos at tackle we've ever seen, and I love it from that standpoint. Vikings next up at pick 55. I'm going to go Christian Haynes. Yes, doubling down on offensive line, but I think Morgan's an upgrade over Eichenberg. Christian Haynes is a perfect way to replace Robert Hunt, and then we're going to get a defensive lineman the next pick at 67. So kind of eating our vegetables, focusing on the trenches. But I think Miami's got enough talent across the rest of the roster that if they don't get embarrassed in the trenches, they can be serious contenders. It's just when that disadvantage in the trench gets a little too far out of hand that things get really difficult to run that offense, and then that defense can also kind of struggle, especially against the run. So the guy that we're going to take at 67, I think, is a really interesting fit. Let's get to Dallas here at 56. I'm going to go Jonathan Brooks, team doctor for Texas, is the team doctor for Dallas Cowboys, or I should say the Dallas Cowboys team doctor is at least the guy who performed the surgery on Brooks. I don't know if he's technically like the UT team doctor, but if anybody's going to know where Brooks is on his injury, it's the Dallas Cowboys. He's a lot of people's RB1, so wanted to put that out there. He's not mine, but I respect a lot of people who have him at RB1, so I think it makes a lot of sense for him to be a Dallas Cowboy and a little bit more big playability than like my number one guy in Blake Corum, so I can see that totally being a fit for Dallas. Tampa Bay next up at 57. I'm going to go Kyrie Jackson. Something tells me he's kind of a Todd Bowles guy. Each of the last two corners that they've drafted, Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, at least those two guys, both 6'1" plus, so I was kind of looking for a guy with a little bit more size, but also has plus athleticism, and that's Kyrie Jackson. Also, like, Todd Bowles loves sending those cover zero blitzes. He likes leaving his guys on an island sometimes, and 6'3" with his athleticism, and Kyrie Jackson's kind of built to play man press. I think he's a Todd Bowles type here. So after the Carlton Davis trade, this makes a lot of sense to replace one starter with another potential starting option and a guy that kind of fits with what Bowles wants to do. All right, and next up, the Los Angeles Chargers. We're going to stay at the corner spot. Mike Sainristil. We're going to go back-to-back Michigan players here, and it's not just because of Harbaugh. It's like two guys that absolutely fit a position of need, and I think it's great value. Like, you get Sainristil here, I think he should go to the top 50, if I'm honest. Easy, like, one of the top slot corners in a very good slot corner class. Love the coverage skills. Will go get his nose right involved in the middle of the run game, like not afraid to get his hands dirty. Just love the all-around skill set. Yeah, not the biggest guy, but that's why he's going to play on the slot. And I just love the playmaking skill set he could bring to a defense that needs one more playmaker on it, especially when you look at their current starter in the slot. So I think Sainristil's a huge upgrade there. The next Wolverine is as well. Let's get on to the Houston Texans. I'm going to give him Ennis Rakestraw Jr. Just a natural at the position, so I think he could fit as that number 2 corner. Derek Stingley Jr. is kind of the high upside guy. I think Rakestraw comes with a relatively high floor. Also, this team could potentially use him in the slot, and I don't hate that idea. So, kind of like Lassiter, there's multiple avenues for Ennis to get on the field here, whether it's outside or inside, and that's another reason why I like this fit for the Houston Texans. Buffalo Bills here at 60. Look, their edge rush cannot be a reason why they're losing games, so I'm kind of intrigued by the idea of going Jonah Ellis. I have Braswell ranked a little higher. Ellis and Nealon, I kind of see them similar. It's just like, do you want a little bit more work? Do you want a little bit smaller, but NFL, like, day one impact guy in Ellis? So conversation to be had there, but I decided to go Ellis over Braswell just because I think Braswell comes with a little bit more work. Like, I think it's going to take time. He's kind of been just now put into a 3-4 starting role. They were kind of changing his body there at Bama. Ellis, like, you know what you're getting. Like, I don't know if he'll have the body type to play every down or anything like that, and I'm not saying he's going to be Von Miller, but, like, that spin move and Leatu Latu's cross chop are the best 2 pass rush moves of anybody's moves in this class. Like, those two definitely are 1A, 1B. And I just think the Bills here in the second round, it's like, we cannot have our pass rush subside. We need guys who can get to the quarterback, even if it means they're a little undersized. And he's a DPR. They need that pass rush. They need that consistent presence. They need pressure. So I kind of like Jonah Ellis here as a value at 60 and as a fit for Buffalo. All right, speaking of Marshawn Nealon, he's going to be the pick here at 61. I think the Lions have afforded themselves the flexibility and the luxury of waiting on Nealon, have Davenport, have Hutchinson, and James Houston be the top 3 guys, draft and stash Nealon, kind of like what the Bengals did last year with Myles Murphy. Multiple ball clay, lot to like, may just take a year or two to get him there. And I think the Lions are in a position where they don't have to force Nealon on the field. Speaking of Chris Braswell, again, only 1 year of starting as a 3-4 outside linebacker. He kind of got to Bama as a 4-3 end, and then they had to shift him to be a 3-4 off-ball linebacker, or 3-4 edge. It's just a 3-4 edge. So because of that, it's been time to kind of adjust his body. And then last year he gets on the field, you see some first step explosiveness, a little bit of bend, but everything else is kind of a work in progress. The Senior Bowl was a little disappointing as well. I could see Baltimore, again, draft and stash. Like, if David Ajabu's healthy, you don't need Braswell. Don't need him right away. And also, like, the Ravens are going to go sign a veteran. They always do it right before the season kicks off. They'll go sign a veteran and go play there and be solid, be serviceable. So I think they'll be able to draft and stash Braswell for a year, and then by year 2, he could be a really nice starter opposite of Odafe Owe. Maybe I'm underselling him. Maybe he is more NFL ready, and the Ravens are a player development factory. If anybody could do it, the Ravens are a great place to see Chris Braswell hit the ground running sooner than I'm expecting. Let's get on to the San Francisco 49ers here at 63. I'm going to go Christian Mahogany. I kind of heard Chris Sims talking about it, and he was like, man, I kind of think he's a perfect San Francisco 49er. I feel like in a lot of ways, he's what they're looking for. Could totally go Dominic Pooney. I think Pooney might have a little bit more movement skills, but the team also drafted Aaron Banks way higher than I thought he should have gone, and he went to his wide zone team where I definitely didn't think that was a fit. I think it's because Shanahan is kind of looking for dudes who, he kind of wants a little bit more physicality. He kind of wants guys to rub your face in the dirt and kind of laugh at you while you're down. I think he wants a little bit more mean streak, and maybe he saw that with Banks and figured the movement skills will come along. Mahogany might be able to find that balance of enough movement skills to be a better fit than Banks, but also wants to kill people across from him. So maybe this is like the Aaron Banks that they wanted Aaron Banks to be. I could see that. But also, I don't hate Dominic Pooney being the pick here. You go either way with me and Mahogany versus Pooney here at 63. Kansas City next up to round out the second round. We'll go Blake Fisher. And Chiefs fans, I want to open up a question for you. So after y'all signed Jawaan Taylor, the talk was last offseason that he was going to play left tackle. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's an option here? Because I almost wonder, is Wanya Morris, would you rather him play right tackle? Ultimately, left versus right, if you have a weakness at tackle, Micah Parsons is going to line up against him. I get it, but let's just talk in theory here. Could you move Jawaan Taylor to Patrick Mahomes' blind side and then have a camp battle of Blake Fisher, who felt like should have been better at Notre Dame, just never got to that elite status, was just pretty good, and then have him battle Wanya Morris? Maybe Fisher's a better pro. Maybe Morris has that year 2 lead. Could you have those two battle it out at right tackle? Basically, my question is, do you think Jawaan Taylor could play left tackle? Last year wasn't great for Taylor, I understand that, but when y'all initially signed him, that was all the talk. He's gonna move to left tackle. And I was like, okay, interesting. That's kind of weird to do mid-career, but I want to know your thoughts. Do you think that's possible, or do you think this has to be a left tackle? I'd be really curious to hear what Chiefs fans are saying about that. I'd be really curious. Anyways, let's move on to the Carolina Panthers at 65. I'm going to go Gabriel Murphy. I think a guy who's just kind of a jack of all trades, maybe not a master of any, but not the best athlete, but just really polished. Kind of a poor man's Laiatu Latu. And I know they're coming from the same school, but kind of the same stuff. I think Latu's a better in-game athlete than he is, kind of wearing spandex. But Murphy's kind of the same stuff. Not gonna wow you. He's not Dallas Turner, not by any stretch, but multiple moves that he can go to reliably. Enough weight to play early downs. I think he's fine. I think he play all 3 downs. So can win with power, can win with length, can win with a little bit of bend, can have a little bit of finesse in his game. Just kind of a jack of all trades. So could just be a solid, reliable piece for the Carolina Panthers. And right now you look at that edge group, Jadeveon Clowney on a 1-year deal, and then it's how many other functioning to above average pieces are there here? I think Murphy could be one of them day one. Giants here at 68. As promised, we're going to go quarterback Spencer Rattler. This would mean that the Giants are going to have to carry 3 quarterbacks, right? I don't think you're on a practice squad, Drew Lock, and he's not going to get picked up. Same thing with Rattler. So you're going to have to carry 3 quarterbacks. Most teams feels like nowadays are carrying 2, but Brian Dable, he worked with Allen. We saw a year of what the upside could have been with Daniel Jones. Also, this last year really guaranteed money to Daniel Jones. And, if he is who we thought he is, if he is who we think he is, to kind of rip off that famous press conference line, they're going to move on from next year. If Daniel Jones is who most people see him as, he's not going to be the starter for the Giants next year. So could Spencer Rattler could be a drafted stash guy, sit for a year, and then bring this awesome arm talent. And you think about his arm with Brian Thomas Jr. and Jalen Hyatt in this very vertical-based Brian Dable offense. To me, it kind of makes a lot of sense. So Giants fans, let me know. Especially if you don't get one of the first-round guys, do you like Rattler in the 3rd? I'd be really curious to hear your input on that and see where Dable's really allured by his upside. I think it could be a really nice fit there. Let's get to Miami here at 67. As promised, we're going to go defensive tackle. We're going to go T'Vondre Sweat. I know it's not the Miami way. You think Miami thinks speed, but You're losing Christian Wilkins, one of the game's best pass rushing interior defensive linemen, solid against the run. I think Sweat's going to take away the interior run. You're not going to be able to run up the middle. Like his two gapping skills, like he's just going to swallow the middle of the field, which keeps those linebackers clean, which you'd like. But also I think he comes with some pass rush juice, which I'm not saying he's going to replace Christian Wilkins day one, but he can replace some of that. So you're getting some run defense, boost right here with Sweat, but also getting a little bit of a pass rush project, a little bit of an upside play there. So I like it a lot there for Miami, and especially if you get him in the third round. I don't see where you could be upset by that. New England here at pick number 68. I'm going to go Javon Foster. I was kind of going back, especially the Senior Bowl. Him and Roger Rosegarden are just two guys that, they're not going to be elite, but, if you draft them here in the third, I don't think you're going to be upset by who they become. I think they're just going to be solid, capable guys. Just kind of average to maybe their peak sends them a little bit above average. Just solid starters. And right now, I think it's worthwhile having a camp battle of Foster versus McDermott. See who wins out that left tackle spot for New England for a year. Maybe get to readdress the position again next offseason. But I think Foster, again, not going to wow you with anything, but just solid, steady, capable, multiple years of starting experience in the SEC. I think he's just going to step on the field and be a pretty good player. And I think that's going to basically be who he is throughout his career. Chargers are next up at 69. Another team that could definitely use some interior defensive line reinforcements like we talked about Miami. But the Chargers, it's been like a 5-year conversation. Can this team figure out how to stop the run? Chris Jenkins is one hell of a step in that direction. 6'3", one of the strongest 295s you'll see, which I know 295 is huge, but we're just talking about 360 Devondre Sweat, 365 Devondre Sweat. So it's very different, but he plays so much stronger. Pound for pound, one of the strongest guys in this class, and an absolute forklift against the run. This guy absolutely stuffs it. And maybe there's some pass rush, upside to be figured out there. Harbaugh didn't get it out of him and Michigan, so I'm not really banking on that here. But third round, I'm fine with drafting a high-end specialist, and Chris Jenkins as a run stopper is definitely exactly that, high-end specialist. Giants are back on the clock here at pick 70. Let's go Cam Kitchens. I'm still looking at that safety room, and I'm like, they can get a little better there. So I think it's worth a shot in the dark. Kitchens. Don't love the 40, but I do love the instincts. You can play him. You can even play him in the box. If you don't think the speed's there to play over the top, just play him in the box. That's fine with me. He's even got man coverage skills to where I think he could play some nickel too, which I value the slot a ton. And if that's where they ultimately play him, I'm fine with that. I think he's got natural playmaking instincts, kind of like Leao Talati. You put him on the field, he plays faster than what he does in spandex. At least that's what I'm going to say translates to the next level. Next up are the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to go Cooper Beebe here. Yes, we're doubling down on offensive line. I know Jonah Williams, if Suamataia starts, that means he's going to move inside, probably. But like I said, you don't have to start Suamataia right away. Cooper Beebe, you could start right away at left guard, though. Absolutely. Just multiple years of starting experience with tackle as well as at left guard. High-end pass protector, love the play strength, and a better mover than people want to give him credit for. People nowadays just kind of they have two ranges. You're either an elite athlete or you're just dog shit. And they don't acknowledge the middle-of-the-road athletes, and that's what Cooper Beebe is. It plays to the next level, I promise you. New York Jets, this one comes courtesy of Daniel Jeremiah. I saw him tweeting about this, and I think it's a really interesting idea. I think safety is kind of one of the spots where I haven't addressed it in any mock yet for the Jets, but they definitely could use an upgrade there. Cole Bishop, really impressed by his combine, showcases some nice ability to be an over-the-top free safety playmaking guy. And whether it's quarters, cover three, whatever solid is going to ultimately kind of sit in the most next year, I think Cole Bishop could see his way on the field to be a playmaker. And again, when your offense is headlined by Aaron Rodgers, and now you got Roma Dunze at 10, and you got Garrett Wilson, you want to be creating these turnovers. Kind of like what I talked about earlier with Newman and the Rams. If he gives you a few more picks a year, think about how it may not sound like much, but it could go a long way when your offense is that. And it's going to roll if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. So getting a few extra possessions, that's the name of the game. I think Bishop brings that kind of turnover machine upside to this Jets defense. And safety is a spot where I've kind of overlooked yet, and I want to talk about it here at 72. Lions are next up at 73. I'm going back to the well here. Zach Zinter's being massively overlooked in this class, at least by the consensus, I think. I think he's massively underrated. High-end starter throughout multiple years to Big Ten. I'm missing what people don't like about him, and just have him sit behind Kevin Zeitler for a year, let him continue rehabbing from that major injury in the last game of the regular season, and then he becomes your starter at right guard. It's a one-year deal for Zeitler. I think this is a one-for-one. I think this is as smooth a transition the Lions could have. Zinter replacing Zeitler in a year's time. Love it a ton. Let's get to the Falcons here at pick number 74. I'm going to go Michael Hall Jr. Grady Jarrett's getting up there in age, so I kind of like the idea of Michael Hall Jr. studying off of Grady Jarrett and just kind of having mentor-mentee relationship. Also, in the case of an Onyemata injury or Grady Jarrett, Michael Hall, especially in pass rush situations, I think could step in and be a pretty useful player. Furthermore, 3rd and 13 sets, Jarrett plus Michael Hall Jr. Don't even have David Onyemata on the field. David Onyemata gets the rundowns, early down work. Michael Hall Jr. subs in for him on passing situations. Love that. So I think he can see the field right away, but it's going to be in a specialized role. But I can also, I kind of like him cheating off of Grady Jarrett's test here. I kind of like him learning the ways of one of the better undersized D tackles. Maybe it ultimately leads to Hall becoming a starter down the line for Atlanta. All right, next up, Chicago at 75. As promised, we are going to go wide receiver here. I'm going to go Jermaine Burton. Now, he does come with a little, off the field, stuff. You could go Jaquan McMillan. Kind of thought about Tez Walker as a designated bigger body deep threat, 6'2", closer to 200 pounds. Do they want someone with more size than Burton? But I also think Burton's just a rock solid route runner, especially deep. But I also think he runs a nice slant off of it, because you're respecting the deep speed, but he'll get you with that inside cut. So I like him in the slant, component too. For this Shane Waldron offense, could he be kind of a Tyler Lockett-esque? I think he could. DJ Moore could do some of that too. I totally get it. And maybe they're missing kind of the DK Metcalf if, Waldron's looking to reassemble his Seattle offense. I don't think he is, but it's a vertical-based offense, and his big place threats and his ability to win deep down the field totally fits with what Waldron wants to do vertically. So I think he's a fit for Waldron. Caleb Williams is going to create big plays, and I think Burton would be a huge beneficiary of playing an offense headlined by Caleb Williams. So I like it. From a pass catcher to passer situation, I like him as a fit for Waldron. It's going to come down to, do they want someone with a little more size? Because maybe you go Tez Walker there. One of the fastest GPS times from the Senior Bowl. Also 4.36 40s time, just kind of putting a measurement to it. I can see them go with Walker over Burton here. Do you want the drop problems or do you want the off-the-field stuff that comes with Burton? There's a reason these guys are falling down boards, despite a lot of things to like about them both. Denver Broncos, I've been going corner heavy here, but I'm going to go Cedric Van Pran. It's just tough to replace Lloyd Cushenberry, who finally kind of hit his stride over the last 2 years and became a really nice center for them. So I think Cedric Van Pran could just be a day one plug-and-play guy. I'm not really impressed with the guys they currently have as starting center options. So Van Pran, ton of starting experience. I think a better mover than people want to give him credit. Again, we've kind of lost the nuance of that average to above average athlete. It's just elite or bad. And I think Van Pran falls somewhere there in the middle, but enough movement skills to fit with what Sean Payton wants to do. But plenty of play strength. I just think this is a nice way to replace Lloyd Cushenberry, and a good value there at 76. Next to the Vegas Raiders at 77. I'm going to go Cam Hart again. I'm a big Cam Hart guy. I think this is a secondary, specifically the corner position, kind of lacking size. So I like bringing in a 6'3" body type and a guy who looks really fluid both at the Senior Bowl and in the on-field drills at the Combine. So a big guy who can move like that, I think it's something that the Raiders would be intrigued by. Washington Commanders are next up at 78. I'm going to go JT Sanders. Could sit behind Zach Ertz for a year and then eventually become the long-term starter at tight end. Love the athletic profile. I know the 40 didn't end up being anything special, but I think on field he's a different kind of mover. And also I think the route running's there, really solid hands. I think in a zone scheme, again, the question comes back to what is the blocking scheme going to be in Washington? If you have an idea, if you're a Commanders fan, kind of a lean, let me know. But if this does end up being a little bit more zone, especially running wide, I think he'll be fine. He's not gonna be like this. He's not gonna be Brevin Spanford. He ain't that in the blocking game. But I think in a zone scheme, just get in front of people, kind of create a lane, block, in that regard versus get your hands on it, win with strength. That's a little bit more a JT Sanders game versus being a big physical power winning, win with strength as a blocker. But you really make this pick because of what he could be as a receiver. And I like the value there at 78 if the Commanders tap into that upside. Atlanta then at 79. This is where I'm going to have Tez Walker come off the board, basically just as a designated deep threat, just run streaks, clear up the middle of the field for guys like Rondale Moore and Drake London. And yes, I know they brought in Darnell Mooney. He's also a yards after the catch threat. And just additional depth. They've loaded up. They brought in a couple of receivers. What's the harm in adding a fourth one? Especially in this, Los Angeles Rams offense. Think about how Tutu Atwell was used before this year, just kind of a DPR, designated deep threat, sorry. Not a DPR, but DDR. Yeah, DDR. DDT, designated deep threat. There you go. Acronyms on the fly. Could Tez Walker kind of do that? I think he could. So just let him run clear out routes, and eventually he'll get open behind the defense, and Kirk Cousins will find him. And that's kind of what I want out of receiver 4 here. Also, we'll see what they want to do with Rondale Moore and Darnell Mooney past year or two of that contract. I'd be kind of curious to see what they're thinking. Cincinnati's next up at 80, and I'm going to go Eric All. You don't have to start him right away, but I think as an inline blocker, he's the best option they have. He's definitely better than Gesicki, but I don't think his injury history correlated back knee. I'm not seeing any kind of chemistry there. I don't see where injuries should be something we're continuing to worry about. And when he's on the field, man, Michigan transfer to Iowa, I like the time of that. High-end athletes, like the route running, like the hands, like the yards after the catch ability. When he's on the field, he's a damn good player, and I don't think the injuries really correlate. So I think I don't see a reason why I should be concerned about injuries to the next level. If that's the case, he's just a hell of a football player. So I like that a ton. Seattle next up at 81. I'm going to go Kalen Bullock. Again, I've done this a couple times. I don't love it, to be honest with you. I really thought about the Dorian Taylor-Demerson. But could you hide his tackling issues, and could he be Marcus Williams in this Mike McDonald defense? If he can be, wow, I love the idea of that playmaking ability over the top. The Seattle team needs some additional safety help after everything they've lost this year with Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams being cut. It's a risk, but Bullock could pay off big time. Also, he could be a tackle liability, so I don't know. Like I said, it comes with some risk. Pick 82, I'm going to give the Indianapolis Colts Braylon Trice. Look, the on-tape stuff is what I'm more focused about. The combine wasn't great, though, but just an insanely high motor, great ability to turn speed to power, just an absolute bull-rushing specialist, too. So throwing him in a rotation with Dayo Dangbo, could he pay? He may not be the headline guy, but I think his power rushing profile is something they could use right now in Indy. So I like Braylon Trice there at 82. On to the Rams. Let's go with Adisa Isaac staying in this edge group. I think they just use one more starter, and I think Adisa Isaac may not wow you. And maybe he actually played the run okay last year, PFF-wise. I think just 254 is kind of where it comes into question, like that plus arm length. Is this going to be a high-level run defender at the next level? Maybe, maybe not. Byron Young is a pretty good run defender, so I think you can make do with one of those two guys being that. But nonetheless, I think they could use one other starter on the edge. Isaac just brings a ton of functional skills. May not be a master of any one thing, but win with length, win with bend, win with speed, just a little bit of everything. And because of that, I think it could just be a nice little day one piece for the Rams defense. Let's get to the Steelers. I'm going to go Roger Rosegarden right here. You draft Rosegarden, who, again, kind of like Foster, I don't think he's going to wow anybody with any one thing, but I just think he's going to be a solid, dependable NFL starter. And if he went back to school, there's a world where he goes somewhere in the mid-first round next year. So maybe there's a chance we're kind of get him at a discounted price. So Pittsburgh drafts Rosegarden, play him at right tackle, move Broderick Jones over to left tackle. I'd be feeling better about that as a Steelers fan than I would with a combination of Dan Moore and Broderick Jones at right tackle. Personally, that's how I feel. All right, next up, Cleveland Browns. I'm going to give him Junior Colson here. You can have him sit behind Jordan Hicks for a year, but I also think he's just he may not be a high-end athlete, but just his football IQ is through the roof. And I think he could just be a day one starter for them, especially on early downs, playing against the run. Again, not going to wow you athletically, but just, man, this guy knows how to play football, which is really interesting given the background that he's had. It's really fascinating that he's picked up the game as fast as he has. But all the credit in the world, and maybe that's the exact reason why you want to buy into someone like a Junior Colson. All right, next is Houston at pick 86. I'm going to go Dominic Pooney here. One, he fell on the board way too much. To me, he's kind of a late second, early third guy, but I don't know what Houston wants to do. I think Titus Howard, let's say he stays at right tackle. And then you have, Juice Scruggs, you got Jarrett Patterson. They, draft Scruggs pretty early. Patterson starts a good bit at center. So I don't necessarily know. You got Shaq Mason, who's still there, former first-round pick Kenyon Green. Could they trade Green? I think that makes sense. Maybe Baltimore's hitting him up. Because you draft Pooney and just have full flexibility here. He can play some guard. He can play center. I don't know. The value was good, so it's kind of mostly BPA. You could go slot corner here. I don't hate that. But we've already kind of addressed that earlier on. But let's just get Pooney in, and let's figure out where he fits in. And at the worst, here at 86, for a team that, all right, dare I say, the second best team in the AFC? Dare I say the second best team in the AFC right now? Having a sixth offensive lineman that can play anywhere you need is a pretty awesome luxury. So I don't hate it from that standpoint either here at 86. All right, then we get to the Cowboys at 87. I'm going to go with Javon Bullard. Bullard's another one of those guys where it's how in the world did he stay on the board this long? And I'm really just playing him over Jordan Lewis in the slot. And the way Al Harris coaches these guys, Bullard's already a natural playmaker. And if he gets to work with Al Harris, good Lord, watch out, NFL. This guy's just going to be an absolute nightmare when it comes to trying to throw across the middle of the field against the Cowboys, whether it's man or zone. This guy's going to just be, again, nightmare fuel for opposing offenses. So I think it's a big-time upgrade over Jordan Lewis. Assuming they don't bring back Stephon Gilmore, it's going to be Diggs and Bland on the outside. I think there's not many major holes on this Dallas team. So, slot's kind of one that stands out. I think it's a great slot class. Bullard, can't believe he fell here to 87. So it's just, do you need him? I don't think you have to, but if he's going to fall in your lap at 87, why wouldn't you? Packers are next up at pick number 88. I'm going to go with a little fun idea here. I'm going to go with Elijah Jones. Kind of been a bit of a rise over the last month and a half, 2 months. And also, his college head coach is now the defensive coordinator at Green Bay. So does that play any influence? I also think you do better than Nixon and the nickel. So whether that's Jones or it's Eric Stokes, I think that fits. But Jones, I really like him in a man-heavy defense. I think that's what Jeff Hafley's going to be bringing in. Actually, you know what? Furthermore, here's what I would do. Assuming everyone's healthy. Stokes and Jones on the outside. And again, I value slot probably more than any other content creator on YouTube. But, dude, have you watched Jair Alexander play when he's healthy? That dude is like Honey Badger-esque. That guy finds the football like no other. Peanut Tillman-esque. Like that man generates turnovers like no other. Punching it out. I remember the diving interception against the Bills. Josh Allen's literally just trying to throw it in the turf, and Jair said, no, I'm snagging it. So having his natural playmaking ability that close to the line of scrimmage, covering the middle of the field, wow, that could be really fun too, though. So, but that's kind of the joy of this. You can move Jones, Stokes, and Jair all around and just keep keep offenses guessing. I like it a lot from that standpoint too. So, reuniting it with this college coach, a lot of flexibility, what you can do on the back end there. Good value there at 88. Next up, Tampa Bay. I'm going to give them Mason McCormick. Really love the movement skills. Coming from a smaller school, so do you love that? Plus Cody Mock, kind of the same thing. But I think Mock will be better year 2, and I think Mason McCormick could be an ass kicker year 1, man. Small school, love the movement skills, but has plenty of fight. He's got plenty of play strength, and he'll want to rub your face in the dirt for sure. And I think he's just absolutely an upgrade over Matt Filer at left guard. And Robert Hainsey's played pretty much center only during his NFL career so far, so let's operate under the assumption that he's going to continue to do that, unless they draft Jax Powers Johnson. Arizona's back on the clock here at 90. I'm going to go Trey Benson. I think this team could just use a big play threat in the backfield. Connor's not really that, and also I think like read option and a defensive end has to choose between Kyler Murray and Trey Benson. I think at that point you fold. You put the cards on the table, and you live to play another hand, because that's a tough decision to make there. I don't really see a positive outcome coming to that. So plus his pass catching abilities are really alluring upside. Florida State did not use that enough. I think Arizona would be wise too. Let's get to the Chargers here at pick number 91 and one final Michigan Wolverine. And again, and look, Ohio State won. Like this is going to be like, oh, TJ, just giving all the Big Ten guys to the freaking Harbaugh. How lazy are you? But just look at the positions. Marvin Harrison Jr., my number 1 receiver. It's close between him and Neighbors, but I think just such a high floor. Marv won. This team needs a receiver. Marv changes the complexion of everything. Mike Samers still that playmaking guy in the slot. They need that. Chris Jenkins, this team for like the last 5 to 10 years has not been able to stop the run. Their defensive tackle group's been putrid. Chris Jenkins fixes that. And you just lost Austin Eckler. And like Gus Edwards could be your lead guy, I guess, but I like the contact balance for Corum. I like the vision. Obviously, continuity with Harbaugh for sure, but also a guy that the last like 4 to 5 games he played at Michigan looked like 2022 Corum. So I think he's recovered from the injury, and I think basically the last stretch of what we saw at Michigan is who he's going to be at the next level, and a little bit more explosiveness. Like the beginning of the year, you didn't see that make a dude miss in a phone in a what do they call it? The phone booth. There we go. You didn't see that as much early in 2023 that you did in 2022. But by the, again, last 5 games of the year, you see that juice, that explosiveness, that elusiveness, the ability to make a dude miss in a phone booth. You saw that more the last 5 games or so that he played at Michigan. I think that's who he's going to be at the next level. I think he's back to 100% post-injury, and I think the Chargers would just get an absolute steal there at 91. My RB1. I love Blake Corum a ton. Tampa Bay back on the clock at 92. I'm actually going to have them trade out of this pick. I'm going to have the Buffalo Bills come up and trade with Tampa, 92. And Buffalo's got a ton of these day 3 picks. Could they use that on this draft class? Absolutely. But I'm going to have them give up the first of their 3 fifths and then the first of their 6ths. I know it'd probably take a little bit more as well. Future 4. Here's what we'll do. We're going to do this for Buffalo. We'll just package both these 4s, the middle 5, and the first of those 2 6s. There we go. That's close enough. It feels close enough. And now the trade engine won't let me do it. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Let me see if I can just do this and make this go through. Nope, it's not going to happen. Okay, well, this was going to be the Buffalo Bills moving up to draft Javon Baker. I'll put the logo right here. The Bills drafting Javon Baker. We're doubling down on receiver. We went with that Nye Mitchell, but I think they could use one other guy. Javon Baker. Love the release package. Again, the athletic testing is nothing crazy, but short area quickness. Love the releases. I think a sharp enough route runner. Love what he can do in the red zone. Love the contested catch ability too. Good size. So him and Nye Mitchell just bringing a little bit more beef to a receiver room that currently features Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, kind of these smaller, more gadget yards after the catch guys who can also stretch the field. I like Baker and Nye as guys who can build on that, but also just bring in a little bit more beef. All right, let's get to the Baltimore Ravens then at pick number 93. I'm going to go Johnny Wilson here. This team could use that big body contested catch guy who could beat some man coverage, and Johnny Wilson definitely can do that. And I think he moves pretty well for being as big as he is. So I like Johnny Wilson a lot there at 93. And I haven't given up on him. I think he probably should be someone who goes top 100. San Francisco 94. I had to get Rook Arroyo off this board. Like, Rook is just too good of a football player. outside inside flexibility. He's a San Francisco type. They lose Eric Armstead. I think Ruka Rororo could kind of replace that production. He's not going to do it all year one, but I think he could slowly build up towards it. And then sticking actually in the defensive line group, I'm going to go with Mason Smith here. I just think there's so much talent to be coached up there, and if there's a guy kind of like Michael Hall, Grady Jarrett, if there's a guy he could cheat off the test with, Chris Jones is top of the list. Especially when you look at Mason Smith, he played defensive end year one at LSU, was all freshman team, All American, whatever the title for that award is. But Mason Smith learning from Chris Jones, can play him all over the defensive line. Sign me up. That's as good a place. That's as good a mentor that Mason Smith's going to have. And now Chris Jones is there for the foreseeable future. Jacksonville at 96. Let's go Austin Booker. I think they're looking for some more edge help, and I really like the blend of bend. And I think good movement skills there from Booker. So he must have been lighter than what he came into the combine at, because the testing wasn't what he looks like on film. But first step quickness, and then the arm length and just the body length in general. Really intriguing fit. They need a third edge rusher. It's worth a shot in the dark here at 96. Cincinnati's back up at 97. I'm going to go Jamari Thrash. You can go him or Malachi Corley. Thrash, I just like the 40 and a little bit more size. So I'm going to go Thrash and basically have him, Charlie Jones, and Andre Yoshivas battle it out for who's going to be two of those three guys are going to be your starters moving beyond T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. I think Charlie Jones actually profiles as a really nice slot, just sharp right runner, use him underneath, and then it becomes Thrash versus Yoshivas for the outside role. Yoshivas could also be used as a big slot. I don't hate that too. So maybe it's a combination of three. Maybe you're just rotating these three, and through that aggregate, that's how you replace the combination of Boyd and Higgins. So it might just require a little bit more coaching from Zach Taylor using all three of those guys long term to replace the two stars that they have, or had last year. Only one of them still there. All right, then Pittsburgh at pick number 98. I do want to shout out Jordan Reed. I talked about him earlier on from ESPN. I was kind of getting back into some of these Penn State guys and really just trying to find some additional depth for this interior offensive line class, because I'm kind of struggling putting together my position rankings because I don't love guys like 9, 10, and on. But Hunter Norzad was the guy that kind of has popped. And the more I looked at his background, I was like, only 1 year starting experience at center. Looked back in some of his time at guard. Solid, pretty good guy. I kind of third, fourth round range if he had stuck there. Then he moves to center this year, and I like his movement skills there. I like his ability to kind of lead the way there. Feels like a zone blocking center. That's what Arthur Smith wants to run. And right now it's Nate Herbig slotted in to be a starting center for Pittsburgh, and I think he's played like 33 career snaps at center. So I don't love the idea of that. So I'd rather Herbig be kind of a depth piece. And then we play Daniel Samalo at guard. I think Norzad, probably a little bit more of a fourth rounder guy, but we only have 2 picks to go here in this third round mock. So might as well have him go very late third round. I think this could be a guy that the Steelers look at. Him or Tanner Bortolini. I think Bortolini is also an option. He's played guard as well. But I did Bortolini last time. Want to throw Norzad a shout. And the last pick, here at pick number 99, Leonard Taylor. Look, when he played 3-tech at Miami 2 years ago, he was awesome. I mean, I don't want to say awesome, but that's when you saw the upside. Last year, playing a little bit more true nose, not so much. So I think playing 3-tech for the Rams might be the move there. So pretty defensive heavy mock draft for the Rams. But guys, that's going to do it for my updated 3-round mock draft back here on the mock draft database. Now we're scrolling through to let you see each and every pick one more time. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Who's your favorite team? And did you like the picks? Did you hate them? Did you fall somewhere there in between? Let me hear your feedback down below. When I look at the right position groups, is there a guy you prefer there? Or are you thinking a different position entirely? What would be your ideal 3-round mock? What position at what spot? Love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments section. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, it helped me out a ton. Helped the channel a ton, really, in this video. If you hit this like button, helps just get the video out to other big draft fans out there and helps us continue to grow the channel as we get closer to 4,000 subscribers. And on that note, if you're new around here, want to see more mock drafts and want to see the draft day coverage, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button for all the latest draft coverage. And as we start to get into the 2025 draft post-April. So, guys, that's going to do it for me. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Leave those comments down below. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I am signing off.